So a growing number of ChatGPT users are turning to the tool for relationship advice. What do you make of that? Is that a good idea?
Well, I think I'm always tend to be someone who looks at the pros and the cons. I think there are probably potential benefits. Certainly, it's fast, it's quick, it's cheap option for people to get some sort of insights, maybe a quick bit of research. If you sort of wanted to ask it, I'm having this problem. Could you give me some suggestions of what I might try to do? That kind of thing could be really useful. I think if you start turning to AI models to kind of as your substitute human interaction, then that's not so helpful because I think ChatGPT can be a little bit like junk food for the soul. You know, it has a sort of, you can fill a gap quite quickly, but that's not necessarily nourishing in the long term. And I think we need that human to human connection to feel emotionally safe. And I think it's partly about, it's not just the content, it's not just the words. Actually, I went to a Tim Minchin concert last night, and he was talking about this with art and saying that it isn't just content, it's content with intent. And I think that's the same when it comes to AI and emotional support. It isn't just the words, it isn't just what you get back on the screen. What we need is to know that another human being is intending things towards us and that we have a positive connection and relationship with them. And as a social being, that's something that no machine's ever going to be able to replace fully. No.
That's really interesting. I actually put into ChatGPT, is ChatGPT good for relationship advice? And they said it can be a helpful tool with some caveats.
Yeah.
They talked about how it was good for clarifying thoughts, perspective taking, communication advice, but it said it's not good for mental health crises, deep personal or unsafe situations, reading minds and making decisions for you. So, I mean, what would you make of its own take on its own abilities?
Well, to be honest, I think I would agree with ChatGPT on that pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I think it is a great tool. I mean, I use it. I will hold my hands up. Sometimes for a very quick thing, I use it for a bit of deep research. I use it for things like organizing my own thoughts. So I tend to use the voice part of it. And I'll say, I just want to speak out my thoughts about this latest theory or concept. Could you just break that down into bullet points so that, for example, if I've got a 3-minute interview or something, I could use it. So I do think it's a useful tool. I think it, like many things in life, it's about moderation. I also think it's about making sure that we're using it as a tool and we're not allowing it to become a substitute, which I think is different. That's the main key bit, I think.
And I take exactly what you say about the need for real human connection and the need to feel heard by a human when you're sharing problems. But sometimes people feel too embarrassed to share problems. They might feel their friends that they would normally talk to have a vested interest in your problem, have a bias of some kind. They can't afford therapy. In those instances, is it better to have some advice than store it all up inside yourself?
I don't know if advice is the word that I would take, but I think helping you to sort of think through some possible solutions, giving you some options that as a prompt, as a cue, as a tool, yes. I do think that when it comes to kind of reaching out to friends and asking them for their thoughts, you're right, sometimes there's a bias. Sometimes there is a reason why you wouldn't want to ask a particular person because you don't want to worry them or whatever. However, I do think that as humans, we need to approach each other sometimes in a clumsy way as well and work that through in the relationship or, you know, work over those hurdles. Human relationships are not perfect. You're never going to get a perfect response. So you need to build up some resilience towards that as well. I do think it's worth pointing out, though, as well, that there are people who have particular conditions, for example. We're hearing a lot more nowadays about executive functioning difficulties with ADHD diagnoses or people who perhaps identify as having autism. And I think for them, sometimes using tools like this can help them organize thoughts, or maybe sometimes when it's difficult because of social anxiety to speak to someone else, that again can be a helpful use of it. But again, like many things, there is a downside to that, and it's about moderation and using it to help you and not necessarily becoming reliant on it so that you end up avoiding social interaction with human beings, because that gives us a particular connection and nourishment that can't be replaced.
Very, very briefly, do you think AI could change the nature of human relationships?
I think it undoubtedly will do. I mean, even to some extent, you know, the fact that we're on Zoom now is different to years ago when we would be in the studio. So technology undoubtedly changes human relationships and the way we interact with one another. But that doesn't always mean it's bad. You know, I think we have to hold that point as well, that human life progresses and evolves, and we will evolve with that. Obviously, it's fast. The technological advancements are coming fast. But nevertheless, we will roll with those times. And if you look at new generations now, they have different ways of engaging with each other, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's all bad.
OK, well, Honey Lancaster-James, really interesting to get your take on it. We really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Such an interesting subject, isn't it?